nostalgic gesture. It is with heavy heart that His Excellency Sir Robert Peel, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has asked that I send this missive to you. His Excellency has been informed of your recent unhealth and offers his condolences to you and yours. Though His Excellency is aware that ties between you and himself are tenuous, His Excellency has always admired the skill in which you have led the House of Commons. Having succeeded you in this post, and as his duty as Prime Minister, the following request has been made of your honourable self: that you either appoint a time and place in which a government minister may speak with you concerning your legacy in the House of Commons, or compose a reply that can be addressed to His Excellency at number 10 Downing Street, London. His Excellency will be honoured to receive any such missive as soon as you may be able to send it. Sincerely yours, Lord George Pitt Rivers, Lord-in-Waiting to the Prime Minister. My legacy in the House of Commons. Well, I did have a distinguished position as Speaker of the House. I introduced all the new bills that were to be read and worked closely with the Prime Minister. Henry Hardinge even called me one of the most decent men who ever held high government office. I'd like to think that he was speaking of my work on the new Poor Law, an act that took the responsibility of the poor's welfare away from local governments and put it into the hands of the United Kingdom's Parliament. It also established a board of commissioners to define and carry out the poor's right to be relieved through government workhouses. Whilst this act did not resolve poverty, it was a vast improvement that has led to the central government's involvement in the poor's rights and change in awareness for their circumstances and privileges. I can still recall the rousing speech I gave while introducing the bill. Honourable members of the House of Commons, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you today, on this, the 17th of April, in the year of our Lord 1834, a bill that has been drawn up first to read. It is an act for the amendment and better administration of the laws relating to the poor in England and Wales. Honourable gentlemen, this is a subject of greatest concern in the government's mind. England's fair shores are looked down upon by all nations. They see her streets filled with refuse and her children starving. They see her homes doorless, but there is nothing in which robbers would wish to see. They see her houses and chapels overflowing with the dirty, the sick, and the poor. But most of all, honourable members, they say that the British government has done nothing to alleviate their suffering. They say that England cannot take care of herself. Well, gentlemen, we are here today to prove them wrong. No longer shall we be looked down upon, but rather, nations shall look up to us as we take charge. It is true, we have tried to remedy this problem before. Older poor laws aim to give relief to the poor, namely in the form of supplemental money. Parishes have been charged with collecting a compulsory tax, a poor rate, if you will, and distributing it amongst the deprived. Gentlemen, this system is old, inefficient, and costly. Many masters are paying their workers reduced wages because they know their employers will receive additional funds from the poor rate. Furthermore, workhouses, where the able-bodied poor are given work, have been instituted in several counties, but never in an organized fashion. They are haphazard and fruitless. The Prime Minister has seen this, and as such, has ordered a royal commission to inquire into the administration and practical observation of these poor laws. They've been working tirelessly for over 2 years, creating questionnaires for over 1/5 of the parishes in England. They are tasked with finding a more efficient solution to this problem. As such, they have created a set of 22 recommendations embodied in the bill we are here today to read. This act will set up workhouses in not just select places, but everywhere. These workhouses, places where the poor can be clothed, fed, and educated for labor, shall be made determinedly harsh, so as to deter those who do not need government aid to support themselves. It shall also be funded from the poor rate, and because there are too many parishes in London to create each workhouse for each each parish, we shall order that a commissioners' board be set up. This board of commissioners, the 3 members of which shall be determined by His Royal Highness and his heirs. They shall be in charge of seeing that all parishes are grouped into unions, each union having its own workhouse. They shall also have the ability to draw up general rules, laws that apply specifically to workhouses in regard to their operation and management. Boards of guardians shall be elected from amongst the ratepayers of each union. They shall be in charge of overseeing their own individual parishes. Gentlemen, this bill, this act is what we need. It has functional implementation in the form of a board of commissioners and significantly reduces the cost of handling the poor. Once parish relief is discouraged, the poor will become independent, and this burden of poverty shall be lifted off our shoulders. Gentlemen, it has long been a question troubling the government's mind. Is it our place to alleviate the poor's suffering and attend to their rights? Is it our responsibility? Well, I boldly proclaim to all that it is, and that here, today, with this bill, we have a way of doing it. I give leave to read the bill. I gave that speech over a decade ago. Shortly thereafter, I was promoted to the House of Lords, where I took little interest in the doings of Parliament. But this bill passed. It passed, and I am proud to call it one of my finest moments in the United Kingdom's government. The new Poor Law passed under heavy opposition, especially from the London Times, which called it a disgrace to the statute book. Riots, mobs, and discontent erupted everywhere. The lower classes feared workhouses, calling them bastilles after the French prison. Many would rather starve than enter these terrifying places where families were torn apart and separated by gender. True to this act, workhouses had terrible living conditions, cramped quarters, and worst of all, poor diets. Inmates' rights were severely restricted, and the least amount of misbehavior was punished severely. Despite this, workhouses were often better homes than the inmates had usually known. While most of Parliament thought that this act would bring about an end to their problem of poverty, many MPs elected in the 1832 Great Parliamentary Reform Act simply wanted to cut the poor rates from their towns. Despite several acts throughout the next century and a half to bring the workhouse era to a close, it wasn't until the 1960s that we saw the last of these places abolished. While most people view British history with blight, where workhouses and the new Poor Law stand, it has really sparked the concern for poverty that has led to national insurance, recently renamed earnings tax, which provides for the poor out of our own paychecks today. Thank you for coming to London Public Library System's A History Hiatus. All material in this act is fictitious, though based off of real, actual historical events. All discrepancies in history, costuming, or props is due to myself or the library. Enjoy your evening.